the Womanizer Future is Wow event, not least because we are in May, which is International Masturbation Month. Now, as Annabelle said, I'm from London, I'm from the UK, and thanks to our Prime Minister, the word May has a few stressful connotations for people at the moment. It tends to get us frustrated and angry, so I'm glad that via Masturbation Month, we're rebranding the word May as something much more pleasurable and relaxing. Annabelle did say that I am a journalist and broadcaster who specialises in sex and sexuality. Now, at this point, when I'm introducing myself to people, I usually make a joke. I usually say, I spend so much of my time talking about other people's genitals and what they're getting up to and down to, that it's amazing I ever have time to have sex myself. In fact, I suspect that there might be eggs that get laid more often than I do. But when I was chatting to my German friend before I came to Berlin yesterday, she said, Alix, you're not going to be able to make that joke. This is an international audience. They're not going to understand your humour. You know, Germans express themselves in very different ways. They use different phrases. And I went, oh, well, could you give me an example? And she said, well, you know how in London, in the UK, we say if someone's fidgety and they can't sit still and can't concentrate, we say they've got ants in their pants. Well, the Germans don't say that. And I was like, okay, well, what do the Germans say? And she said, oh, they say you've got bumblebees in your bum. Bees in your arse. You know what, people, if you're talking about having bees in your bottom, you're not going to struggle with what I've got to say about sex toys today. And that's what I am here to speak to you about. I am a big fan of sex toys. I'm sometimes a big fan of big sex toys. And lately, I've noticed a really big trend in the sex toy industry. Now, I know that a lot of you are going to be thinking, we all work in the sex toy industry. What can this woman with her crazy neon hair tell us that we don't know already? Well, let me give you a bit of background about my work. A couple of years ago, I hosted an audio documentary for The Guardian newspaper in the UK. It was called Close Encounters, and it was a series of interviews with people about the real sex that had changed their lives. Some fascinating stories came up. I spoke to one guy who had a terrible accident that left him completely paralysed from the neck down, including his penis, 2 weeks before he was supposed to go on his honeymoon with his new wife. And we spoke about the new ways he and his partner had discovered to give each other pleasure. I spoke to a woman with not one, but 2 vaginas. She was born with 2 vaginas. Her nickname for herself was the double-barreled shotgun. She also told me that when she does a little fanny fart, she can make them harmonise. Pretty impressive. And then I spoke to a guy who identified as asexual, which means that he has no drive to have sex whatsoever. But he really wanted to find a life partner. He really still wanted a relationship, even though he knew that he would never sleep with that partner throughout their lifetimes, and he was worried about being lonely. So we're talking about really interesting interviews with really interesting people about very personal subjects. And this show was broadcast throughout the UK and beyond, and I got millions of people getting in contact with me, wanting to tell me their own sexual stories, their own thoughts, their own problems, things that they had often never told anybody before. I also do a weekly show called The Modern Man Podcast, and I'm a resident agony aunt in that. And that's been going for 8 seasons now. And again, it means that people write to me and they tell me their deepest, darkest sexual fantasies. They tell me all the things that they're worried about, all the things that get them excited. They tell me, well, your customers, the people buying your products, tell me their sex secrets. So now are you interested in me to what I've got to say, huh? So let's get back to sex toys. It's no secret amongst us as experts that in the sex toy world recently, a lot of things have been getting a lot more complicated and technological, like more complicated, more computerized, more clever, you might say. I'm talking about things like internet-enabled teledildonic toys that can communicate with each other across continents and mimic movement in different places in the world. I'm talking about the infamous and very controversial sex robots that the media are all going wild about at the moment. I'm talking about dildos and vibrators that can interact with virtual reality headsets. There's a lot of really interesting technology in our field at the moment that is undoubtedly exciting. I was chatting to a friend of mine recently who works for a sex toy company that makes smart vibrators that learn what kind of stimulation gets you off and then replicate it the next time you use it. And she was explaining that they hope to develop software that will allow these smart vibrators to interact with other smart items in the home. So we're talking about things like Alexa or maybe Nest power systems or Moodoo scent diffusion boxes, with the idea that once you are in a horny mood and you flick on your vibrator, it will automatically raise the heating, lower the lights, release a seductive perfume into your bedroom, and then automatically start playing your favorite playlist of sexy tunes. Some people would think that sounds really attractive, others might have different ideas about it, but this looks like where the future is going. It's all getting very technological. I'm worried, however, that a lot of companies are jumping onto that bandwagon of technology because it's fashionable without really thinking about the real sex that people have and the real things that they want. And sometimes smart is doing really stupid things. Let's consider a product that launched in the UK not long ago, which was billed as a smart condom. It actually turned out not to be a condom at all. It was a cock ring that kind of acted like a Fitbit for your bits. Has anyone else got a Fitbit out there, or an Apple Watch, smartwatch? Well, what this smart Fitbit for your bits does is it measures metrics like the number of thrusts and the speed that you're going at it in bed. Now, there might be some people who think that's fun. There might be an even smaller number of people who are willing to pay the €70 that this company wants for this cock ring. But the letters I get from my listeners and my readers, lots of them tell me that they're really struggling with the idea of feeling like they have to perform during sex. They feel like they're under enough pressure as it is. The last thing they want is a spreadsheet telling them how fast they went between the sheets. Some of the other things that this smart cock ring measures are the circumference of your penis. Now, I don't have a penis, but as I understand it, that doesn't change wildly from session to session, unless you're suffering from a really bad allergy. Then it might get a lot bigger. This cock ring could also tell you the temperature of your penis. Why would you need to know unless your crotch is on fire? This just doesn't strike me as a clever use of smart technology. I think it's pathetic. I think it's a waste of money. I think it's a waste of time. And I think it's a wasted opportunity. Because when technology is used intelligently and compassionately in the field of adult products, then it has the capacity to revolutionize love lives. It can change lives full stop. Technology can give the power to people who've never had an orgasm before to savor their very first climax. It can help people with disabilities to live more full and satisfied lives. It can allow guys who are struggling to get an erection to experience pleasure even when they're flaccid. And it can help people who are getting older, elderly folks, make the most of their bodies and continue to have a lot of pleasure in their lives. So technology definitely does have huge potential to bring sexual revolutions and sexual revelations and help people build better, close relationships with themselves and with their lovers. But that only happens if you make products that matter. And to do that, you need to know what matters to human beings. You need to talk to your customers, a little bit like I do, and you need to listen. Now, the temptation with sex tech is often to see how far we can push things. We want to give products more functions and more features. We want to connect more things together over the internet. We want to make them more powerful, more fantastical, more futuristic, bigger, faster, harder, wilder. But is this the right instinct? Is this what people really want? And should we do it just because we can? Well, I don't think so. I'd like to read you out a letter that I got only 1 week ago from one of my listeners that says, "Dear Alix, I'm worried that my body has become reliant upon sex toys for pleasure. Over the years, I've worked my way through increasingly powerful models of toy, and although I love the sensations they give, I now struggle to climax without using a device. I used to be able to come using just my fingers, so I want to experiment with unplugging from toys for a while and rediscovering my sensitivity, getting back in touch with myself, literally." And she goes on to say, "I've heard friends talking about tantric sex practices lately and orgasmic meditation. Is this something you think could help?" Now, there's some challenging ideas in that letter if you're someone that makes sex toys. And I think it's really important that we think about them, because I am getting a ton of emails that say things exactly like that at the moment. There are people who think that they don't want more sex tech in their lives, they want less. Lots of them, like this person, are telling me that they're thinking about downgrading their toys to something gentler. They're telling me that they want to reduce how regularly they use them, or even give them up altogether, at least temporarily. Lots of them ask me about exploring practices like tantric sex, which encourage people to focus on very simple things like breathing deeply or heightened awareness of very delicate skin-to-skin touches and being really present and emotionally connected with their partner during sexual encounter and not being distracted by, say, fiddling with a fancy device. They're using phrases like getting back to basics or learning to appreciate the simple things again. They tell me that they want to digitally detox or deprogram themselves. And the reasons that they give me for why they want to do this, well, there's all sorts of things. Some of them say that they're very worried about smart sex toys giving their data away or being hacked into. Others of them have discovered things like mindfulness or meditation or yoga, and they want to extend those practices into their love lives. In the UK at the moment, our National Health Service is encouraging more women to try long-acting reversible contraceptives like the hormone-free coil for economic reasons. They're cheaper and they're very effective. And I'm also hearing from lots of women who've read studies connecting hormonal contraceptives with depression. And as a result, lots and lots of ladies in the UK are deciding to come off the pill, and they're reassessing their entire relationships with their bodies as a result. They're coming to me saying, I want to relearn about myself again. I want to keep things simple. I want to go back to basics. Now, they're not asking for bigger, faster, harder, wilder. They're asking for more natural, more simple, more connection with their lovers, not with the Internet of Things. Now, so far I've only given you some anecdotal evidence from my experience to tell you that this is a trend, but if you look around, there are all sorts of signs that this is definitely a growing population of people. Old legendary texts to do with tantric sex, like Barbara Carellis' Urban Tantra, are being rewritten and republished because there's such popular demand for them. In the UK, and in fact all over the world, orgasmic meditation lessons are popping up and making a heck of a lot of money from people. And in London just now, we've even got tantric speed dating. For people who want a fast way to meet like-minded souls who want to slow things down in the bedroom. Burned out business people are paying money to go to retreats where they get gradually weaned off the devices they feel are taking up too much of their time. And there was a study by Durham University, again in the UK, that analysed how people feel things like emails and social media and the ding, 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 ding of devices like their phones was really negatively affecting their relationships. In fact, it found that a shocking 40% of people surveyed admitted that they'd answered their phone while they were having sex. Hi, Mum. Bit busy right now. I'm in the middle of someone. So, as a result, some couples are banning handsets from their bedrooms altogether, which is something to think about if you are designing a toy that's controlled via a mobile app. All over the place are signs that when it comes to sex, lots of people are feeling oversaturated and overstimulated and overexposed to screens and to machines, and there's a backlash against technology. So, where does that leave us? As a community, we're constantly trying to innovate and to use the technology we have at our disposal to create new, desirable toys that people really want to buy. And I think lots of us feel like we have to use technology and come up with fresh stuff in order to differentiate ourselves from our competitors and make something unique. So, how do we cater to a crowd who want things to be more simple? How do we win those people back while still moving our industry forward? And how do we avoid creating idiotic dick rings that make us all look like dickheads, huh? Well, maybe the answer lies in considering technology in a more nuanced human way. We don't have to make everything faster. We can make it slower if that's what people want. Maybe it's not about always delivering more power and more strength. Maybe it's about being more subtle, more gentle, and creating something that's more beautifully simple. Now, some pioneers are already experimenting with this. Dr. Kate Devlin, who's a robotics expert at Goldsmiths University, every year is hosting a sex tech hackathon where she invites some of the smartest minds in the sex tech industry to get together and think out of the box about what they're doing. And one of the most interesting inventions that they came up with this year, or this time around, was a hammock that a person lies in, and it's had lots of tiny motors that would stimulate all over their bodies. So it wasn't just thinking about sex from a genital point of view, it was thinking about it from a whole body, holistic point of view. There is also an arts student called Wang Tseng who studied at, I think it was Central St Martin's, the Royal College of Art, excuse me. And she devised a system of wearable toys called Wisp. Some of them were necklaces that went round your collarbone that would blow hot and cold air against you like a lover's breath. Some of them are tiny little sticky patches that you can put anywhere you want on your body, and they make really teeny weeny sounds, so you have to concentrate and be quiet and focus on your whole self. Now, this was just an art project, but the public was so interested that she is now in talks to manufacture these things on a grand scale. So it's proof that you can do technology differently. And ultimately, I think we all need to remember that everything we make is for human beings. It's the toys that have the human touch that people will want. They'll want to touch themselves with them, and they'll want to touch their partners. And those are the toys that will touch lives. Thank you very much.